Kate, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program today.
Oh, thank you very much, Joe, for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic was raging, changing our world. How did you get through it? How has it changed the way that you do things today?
Oh, how did I get through the pandemic? With rebellion, according to my neighbours. I
Yeah.
didn't believe for 1 second that I became a biohazard or any other healthy person or anybody else became a biohazard overnight. I just didn't buy into the narrative, instantly didn't buy into the narrative.
Yeah.
Um, and I was actually quite horrified that everybody else did, or that so many people did. I couldn't get my head around how can the vast majority of the population believe that we've all become biohazards overnight? Um, yeah, so then began a rebellion, I guess.
I believe it. I mean, it had a monopoly on us. You had to do something. You couldn't just wait around for it.
Oh, no, so my son was with me full time at the time, and so we came down to the south coast, and it was easier because people were on the beach, kids were playing on the beach, and of course they just kept playing with each other, the kids, and you're like, that's what you need.
Uh-huh.
And the ice cream stalls were still open, so you could still buy an ice cream. So that felt a little bit more sane
Yeah.
than where I was otherwise.
Sure. Well, I think that was the thing about the pandemic. It was the kids that suffered the most. We
Mm.
older adults had been around for a while. We hadn't seen anything like that. But not only had the kids had to live through it, they all of their outlets were totally taken from them. Social, emotional, so many things. So good for them for playing and getting in there because it was necessary, for sure.
Yeah, it was, and there was a sort of tipping point at one point. I was obviously doing everything I could, and I was getting up at 4 a.m. to do my cash flow forecasts and things on my business, and then I'd agreed with my son, he was 6 at the time, that I'll join you at 9 o'clock, and then I'd spend the day with him. And then I asked him at one point, can we do anything different? Can we do anything better? And he said, Mum, can you just be a little boy? I was like, of all the things I can do for you, that one I can't do. So I was like, come on, we're going to go to the south coast,
Yeah, right.
get on the beach and play.
That's it, for sure. So let's get into the good work that you're doing. I'm going to put you in front of 12-year-olds. You're at career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you explain your day job to their brains?
Oh, I help you be the hero of your own story. And
Okay.
they get it instantly. Yes, please. I like the sound of that.
So how do you explain it to me?
How do I explain it to you?
Yeah.
I've ended up in this awful situation with my son, court ordered separation. We haven't seen, 2.5 years. We have an hour a week on FaceTime. And we're when we end up in this diabolical situation, I'm reading to him online. We've got an hour a week. I read to him just to diffuse. And about 5 months in, something like that, finished Treasure Island. And I say to him, Gabriel, should we make up a story where you're the hero? And he said, yes. And he starts telling me his story, and I just scribble it down. Just wanted to do something positive. And I'm thinking I'll type it up in the week and I'll post it to you. We've got a little private project where, then you're receiving something nice in the post every week and it'll build out. About 8 weeks in, this is a mess on my desktop. So I put it all in one Word document just so that I can see my desktop basically. I flip my phone around and show him, Mum, it's a book.
Wow.
Because of the situation we were in, I couldn't say no. So, but equally, I had my own hang ups. Mrs. Robinson at primary school had loved covering my work with her red pen, and I had my own hang ups about who on earth am I to publish a book.
Yeah.
And also the shame of our situation as well, in that that would expose the position we're in. But anyway, I sent it to a very dear family friend here who'd been a head teacher and school inspector, and her big thing had been kids' creative writing. And then I also sent it to a child psych that I just had met on LinkedIn in the US. Both of them separately came back saying, get this out now, with the same rationale. So both sides of the Atlantic, unconnected people, get this out now because there's nothing where it's one child's imagination inspiring another child.
Wow.
So we self publish it. And then there's our blessings in this, Joe. I end up meeting Helen Fielding. Obviously, I'm of Helen Fielding's generation, the author of Bridget Jones.
Yeah.
She thought the magic was as a 20-year-old she'd written for other 20-year-olds. And she thought Jane Austen had done the same. So she thought there was a real magic in when one generation writes for its own, you write for your contemporaries, rather than most children's literature is written by grown-ups.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm Gabriel's scribe, but it was his imagination. So I realise, okay, there is something in this, and a friend drags me along and gets me talking about it. And I'm asked, what's the process? What's the process? And I'm asked this by social workers, teachers, parents, grandparents. Couldn't comprehend the question. What do you mean? What's the process?
Yeah.
Then it dawned on me if there was a process, it was the process I'd used for 20 odd years as a physiotherapist. Storyteller scribe. 5,000 people must have come through my clinic doors or something like that. I can remember one person came with their story written down. Everybody came into the clinic telling their story.
Yeah.
They had one executive function to do at a time, and their only executive function was to orate their story about their pain, their problem, whatever it was. And as the physio, or physical therapist you call us in the US, you scribe, you scribble it down. If it's necessary, you type it up later to send the letter to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah.
And that's what we were doing. And so, again, we get an invitation to go into schools to test out this process. Does it work in the classrooms? Is it just something, that works with my son and I because we had the rapport, we had the relationship, or does it work with other children? Nearly 500 children later, every single one says yes to being the hero of their own story.
Wow.
And they instantly get the idea of I'm the storyteller, you're the scribe, because they've learnt the concept from the Egyptians,
Yeah.
when they all their history lessons in school. And they absolutely love it because they can't be wrong. They simply cannot be wrong because it's their story.
Yep.
So they can only be right. All that fear of the blank page is gone. And they get to overcome and achieve whatever it is. The only limit is their imagination. And then their friend just captures bullets. They're not worrying about paragraphs, just capturing the ideas so nothing gets lost. Then once that's done, they share their story with their classmates. And that's when they help up level. So tell me exactly how big that dragon was. What colour were the cat's eyes? And that's when the extra detail comes in because they want their friends are helping them up level their stories.
Yeah.
And literally the kids are then chomping at the bit saying, I want to write my story now. I want to write it. They see
Wow.
themselves as an author. They see themselves as a superhero. They see that their imagination is their superpower.
That's beautiful. I mean, everybody wants to talk about themselves. People love to divulge, and especially kids. And if you can up the ante and they can be a hero, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Makes,
Nothing more purposeful to a child than their
yeah,
own story. Yeah.
absolutely. So, what did you want to be at that age? When you were 12 or 13 years old, what was your dream gig?
I wanted to be Katrina Witt. She was a German ice world class
Yes.
champion.
Norwell. Yeah.
Where I would go to the ice rink several times a week in my little pink skirt and white boots, and I was competent,
Yeah.
twirl and whirl around that one day I'd be spotted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell me this. What was it about your childhood that gave you this dream of wanting to get Olympic gold, being a storyteller, the psychology of the mind? How did all of this become you?
Really smart question, Joe. Thank you. My grandfather, my mum's dad, was an incredible oral storyteller, monologuer. And I would ask him again and again and again to repeat his monologues. I can still hear them. He's long, long gone. He passed away when he was 15 or something, but I can see he had an accent from the north of England, a Yorkshire accent. I can still hear his accent. And they just got embedded in. And the one that was most significant that was If by Rudyard Kipling, which of course is you just keep going. And if you never ever quit, all comes good in the end, no matter what judgment you face or problems you face. And that has certainly given me a sticking power, a resilience. I almost want to say fearlessness, I suppose, in that if you just never ever quit, things will come good. So yes, I have my granddad to thank for that. The dream about being Katrina Witt, I don't know other than I loved ice skating and twirling around and making it routines to Bananarama.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I remember that era very well. So, what was your favorite book? What was your favorite hero or heroine? Who was that for you growing up?
I really loved reading Nancy Drew books.
Okay.
Really loved reading them. And I think it was um she didn't stop. She kept going. She was like, I don't, you probably didn't read them, they were very much teenage girl books.
Yeah.
But she was a detective and she
Uh-huh.
just kept going. She tugged and tugged and tugged on every thread and she wouldn't quit until she got a resolution, until she got an answer. So again, there was something about that persistence and curiosity. She was curious. And if things didn't make sense, she was curious. And I still remember my Nancy Drew books.
Yeah. Well, I knew about him very well. I mean, and that in this Gen X 80s generation, those mysteries were the cornerstone of everything. I mean, even in
Mm,
school when we would watch things, it was all about a mystery.
yeah,
What are we going to solve? What are we going to figure out?
yeah.
Yeah, it
And it's curiosity. I think that's what it inspired, was a sense of curiosity. Just be curious. Don't take things at face value. Ask questions, probe a bit further, because maybe things aren't as they seem on face value.
Yeah, for sure. Have that cat-like quality. You know, I remember, especially here in America, when this current clown show that we're dealing with right now started, I had to read and get involved with things that were going to be positive. And one of the things I did was I read a book about Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I started thinking more about his whole thing is about taking kids more seriously. It's like we always kind of like say, okay, they're kids, and what I see with what he said and with what you're doing is when you take kids seriously and you give them this pulpit, it's going to change their lives inextricably forever. It's going to make them feel as though they're a part of the conversation because kids are either excluded or told they're kids and they can't be involved. But if you give them that literary freedom and choice to be involved in a narrative and to create the narrative and to have a hero, that's going to be invaluable for their level of ego and superego and id as they get older in life.
Absolutely. And I think it was a point I made yesterday on a video, was that at the weekend I was walking through the market square here and the market stalls were setting up. It was quite early. And they were talking, the market traders were talking about the trafficking of children through our state on the street on a sunny Sunday morning. And it was just like, hang on a minute, the predatory environment that our children are now being brought up in is in open dialogue. And therefore, the only solution I see to that is one of leadership, in that we teach our children to lead themselves. The mother seal has to teach her pup to swim.
Yep.
She can't plead with the orca because the orcas get hungry anyway. She's got to teach her pup to swim. She's got to teach the pup self leadership. And through storytelling, children get to fire off their imagination and they get to solve all kinds of problems. They simply can't be wrong. If that solution doesn't work out, well, it doesn't matter. They can try another solution and they can develop and practice their own philosophies, which later on will help them decide what decisions to take, which will determine the actions they take and the results they then get. So I think it's not about the grammar, it's not about the spelling, it's about them developing their identity and a sense of can do and a sense of self leadership. So, just like Nancy Drew, they know they can form their own opinions.
So when that book finally came in the mail and it was in pulp version, what was that feeling like? What was that adrenaline rush like?
So, Kevin, the dear chap that published it for me, did a wonderful job of holding my nerves because I honestly, the hang ups I had about who on earth am I to publish a book,
Yeah,
Mrs. Robinson did a good job of, with that red pen.
yeah,
And it was of the illustrations in it are beautiful. I mean, yeah, straight away you obviously spot some mistakes, but the illustrations in it were beautiful. And the same weekend that it came out, there was a literature festival in the town I was in, and so I took the book in my handbag to the literature festival, where that's where I met Helen Fielding, and the Times newspaper had a radio van there, and they were just interviewing passers-by, and they said to me, "Come back in 2 hours' time," and again I'm like, I went away and of course I said yes. I had a panic in terms of who am I to go on the Times radio?
yeah.
What am I going to say?
Why not?
And you just start to take all these blessings, just saying yes, yes,
Oh,
yes. And I've got to bring up the point as well. We're talking about the importance of kids' stories. Obviously, you've just shared with me you're in Kansas, and again, a really powerful story is the Wizard of Oz and,
sure.
Dorothy clicking her shoes. But I think there's an also where the world feels so dystopian at the moment. I think there's a magic in the Wizard of Oz that eventually the flying monkeys flip.
Yeah,
And I think, hold on to that. The flying monkeys do turn
yeah.
in
No,
to the right side.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's what all the rest of us that didn't vote for this are hoping for, because this is definitely something that's very, very surreal. But we're also entering this age of AI with, all kinds of things that are manipulating information. My son is on the spectrum, and I have to diffuse all kinds of videos that come across that are blatantly fake. Athletes talking about things that aren't them, and just things are getting totally convoluted, as if we already didn't have enough conspiracy theories and weird social media information. Now we have this absolute computer brain generated stuff that's ultra genius feeding us things that are making us question, if we're in the matrix or not.
Yeah, yeah. And well, I think we've got to see AI like a calculator, in that we've got to own the inputs and be able to make sense of the outputs.
Yeah,
But if and that way AI becomes our tool
right.
rather than us becoming its tool. So we've
Exactly.
got to learn discernment. We've got to, and children need to learn discernment. Does this make sense
Yep.
or
Yep.
not?
Absolutely. Well, it's just like that idea. I remember someone saying at one point, you can't trust AI to make judgments for you. At the end of the day, the only thing that's going to make any sound sense for a human is if we make that judgment call. Now, we can lead you through GPS to a location. It can help you like research things that maybe you don't know, but as far as like the real meat and potatoes of why we're human, that can't be replaced by something that's computer driven. It just
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, we are social creatures. And
Yes.
again, I think the lockdown showed us that. It
Uh-huh.
showed us how important social connection was.
Yeah.
Because without it, I mean, loneliness is one of the biggest killers.
Yeah.
And if all you're doing is talking to AI, well, I don't know what the consequences are of that, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be very healthy. We need social connection. We are
Yeah.
social creatures. And I think we forget that. I think people forget that we are, like nature. We are biology. We're like the seals, the nature.
Yeah.
We forget that. We start to treat ourselves like robots, and we're not.
Right. I have a tuxedo cat, and if I'm not around him for like a spate of time, he's just all over me, just ready to go. And I
Yeah,
feel like that's the animal part of us. We may
yeah,
not express it as humans that way, but other animals are really good. Like the dog will always wag its tail when you come in the house. Like there's always this excitement that
yeah.
that is a part of our socialization as humans. So let me ask you this. When you every morning you get up, what is the energy for you to do this work, to connect, to make stories, make dreams come true, to take care of your soul and your family? What is that every day, that drive for you to do this?
Do you know, it actually no longer feels like that because I'm guessing I'm starting to feel so on purpose
Yeah,
that also it's becoming automatic. It's just like this is what I do, rather than it being something that's forced. I mean, I've owned businesses in the past where you've got to, get yourself out of bed some mornings and motivate yourself. But it's starting to feel so congruent, which is what I was looking for. Is in adversity, I was like, I've got to make everything congruent, so it's all pointing to one direction, and that's how it's feeling. I mean, I do try and do some exercise first thing, but I took pressure off speed, distance, whatever, just swim, walk, cycle, but I didn't worry about how fast, and I still keep that habit. So sort of set myself up for the day by having done some exercise first thing. But essentially, it's starting to feel like everything's congruent and coming to a flow, I suppose, Joe.
yeah, for sure. Well, that's when you find your true purpose, your true meaning and calling. I have a jazz radio show, and I remember there was a quote from Miles Davis, and at one point he said it took him decades to find his voice. And I'm like, hold on a second. You're one of the most popular musicians of all time. We know your horn and that album kind of blew in a way that no one will know most things that are created. But he has a voice, and we all have a voice. We all have a purpose. And when you
Yeah,
find that, all of the lines of the Venn diagram just bleeds together. It all becomes
yeah,
central to your soul,
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
That's a really beautiful description, Joe. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Let's say we construct another story here, and you have a dream tonight, and you walk into a room, and your 18-year-old version is in that room, and there's a film projector, and you walk up and you click play, and there's a 60-second highlight reel of this life you've lived, the choices you've made, where you're at right now. Would that young version of you believe that this journey is yours?
No, she wouldn't believe. She wouldn't believe the pain. She also wouldn't believe what she was capable of.
Yeah.
Um, and she also wouldn't believe that what's going to get her through it is not school grades. I was a good student at school. I had my head down. I got my grades. That's not when you need when your back's against the wall.
Yeah.
When your back's against the wall, there are other things you need. You need
Yeah.
the story you're telling yourself. You need the integrity with yourself. You need to look yourself in the mirror. You need the grit that If poem had stilled in me from my granddad. That's what's got me through adversity. And that's what's enabled me to trust myself with creating something that I wasn't formally trained to do, but clearly is bringing together all of my skills. So no, she would never have believed this. No, the good and the bad.
Yeah, for sure. So in that highlight reel, what are you the happiest about? What are you the proudest about that's happened in your life?
I'm the proudest of where this is now going. Never did I believe out of this tiny constraint of an hour a week with my son, would we now be creating a global movement that's empowering other children. And his own sense of pride when he said to me just like 10 days ago, Mum, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us. For everything that's been thrown at us, for him to say that, it's like, right, we're onto something. And if we can just now share even a sprinkle of that with other children, it means that one day when it becomes my time to leave this planet, I know I've done the best I can.
Absolutely. I can't help but shake that notion of J.R.R. Tolkien. He really came up with that whole trilogy because he was afraid that telling stories and weaving together narratives were going away. And he constructed that with his kids
Mm,
at
yeah,
night when he would tell them stories. He wove the whole Hobbit and the whole universe together and made this thing that has transformed the world. You know, it's wild. And I remember when my kids were younger, especially Miles. I would do podcasts with him when he was a kid, and we would just do mundane things like, how did that little cup of peaches fall on the ground, and what was going on, and just silly, trivial things. And we still listen back to it. And I would do that, like if he would go to the dentist or the doctor, and he still wants to listen to those things 10, 15 years later, and it's those little narratives. And without it being overt that he was the hero, he is that hero. He is that psychological archetype that is predominant in that story, which is totally fascinating. That the kids have that power, you
yeah,
know.
they do. And they're really enjoying it. I mean, they're the ones that have inspired. Hang on a minute, you're doing this with other children in other schools. Well, therefore, can't we read each other's stories? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, can we animate our stories? Well, of course we can with AI. And one boy was trying to solve the Middle East conflict in his story, and his friends challenging, like, yeah, right, how are you going to do that? Says, well, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a cup of tea, and when we've sorted it all out, we'll have a pizza party. Very, very pragmatic. And you're like, the level of morality in their stories and their understanding about how, as content creators rather than as consumers, they can connect with each other is really magical. And that's starting to make me more and more the facilitator than the director, if you like, because they've
Yeah.
got the ideas. They're way, way more um, competent at this and competent at their self leadership, and they're given an opportunity to do. We just need to get out their way and help them make it happen.
So the one thing about writing is that it's a real solitary act. We don't get a real portal into it. There's documentaries on painters. We have these films of Picasso and other people, and like the Stones backstage, get ready for a tour. We have all of these things, but writing is such a solitary thing. If you could be in the room and watch one writer construct a masterpiece or write something just to see how they paced or what they drank or what they did or if the window was open or where they were at, like that kind of Rockwellian picture, who would you love to see write?
I would choose Jane Austen. I had the
Okay.
blessing of being at an editor's conversation, and they showed Jane Austen's and Tolkien's. They showed that Tolkien was scribbling, drawing pictures as he was writing.
Yeah.
Beautiful, because we have this fear of the blank page. But my fear was over spelling and grammar, and Jane Austen could not spell, and her grammar was appalling. She was completely dependent on her editor's publisher. And as soon as I saw that, ah, Mrs. Robinson went in a corner and her
Uh-huh.
red pen.
That's it. Yeah, I'm the same way. I've been in journalism. I've been writing my whole life, and I just, as much as I try, I'm so glad there's things like spell check and other things that can correct me. But I think it's more about that notion of if you have an idea, the grammar and everything, we all play our role.
Yeah, they're two separate functions. I think
Yeah.
that's what I've learned. I mean, people say, write drunk, edit sober, but
Yeah.
it's like get that imagination out, get that expression out. You can
Uh-huh.
tidy it up afterwards, or somebody else can tidy it up. And I would
Yep.
love to see, knowing that Jane Austen was so dependent on somebody else to edit her work, how did she go about the process of just pure expression?
Yeah. That's fascinating. So let me ask you this. Let's get to the true intersection of your soul here. Everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you in a business sense, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I've been called highly dangerous,
Okay.
but I think it's actually highly competent.
Yeah.
And that's what 18-year-old me never saw.
Yeah.
So highly competent.
Well, and I think that's kind of a part before we got on, we were talking about where you're at right now. There's a level of you made it happen. We're in this David Lynch kind of cube world right now. It's great, you know?
Yeah.
It's
And I'm not alone in being highly competent. Of course, I'm not. Lots and lots of people are. But all we need is sometimes just one person to believe in us and never quit on us. And if somebody just believes in us, we can access our potential.
who believed in you? Who was the first one that believed in you and saw you for you?
Again, I'm going to go back to my grandfather.
Yeah.
I remember him watching us swim when we were kids. And I remember him afterwards saying, Kate, you don't stop. You don't stop. I'm not a sprinter. But he says, you just do not stop. And
Wow.
that's transpired. Is that
Yeah.
clearly I've become a sort of endurance athlete in life.
Yeah. We need that though. We need that person to see us for who we are, and it builds huge dividends. So the most important thing now is if anybody wants to reach out, they want to learn more, they want to be a part of your movement, any of the good business, where do they go?
My name's Kate Markland. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am also on Facebook and Instagram, but LinkedIn predominantly. And the website where you can find the stories and mine and Gabriel's stories is called StoryQuestGlobal.com. And then
Okay.
you can hear the other children's stories and find Gabriel's books and figure out how to take part at home or at school.
I love it. I will put all these links in the show notes. Kate, this has been absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful story. Thank you for taking a minute out today. Best of luck with it.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for inviting me to click my red shoes as well.
Yes. I love